mother heard.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's it.
The other day I was doing some math, which isn't something I normally do, but I was crunching some numbers. At the very end of my math session, it hit me. I realized that mathematically speaking, there's a very low chance that every person in the world has heard of Hot Mulligan. It sounds crazy, right? The hottest band out right now, and there are people existing that have never heard their music. I'm not saying this video will solve this problem we're currently facing, but I hope it's a step in the right direction. Today we're going to get acquainted with Hot Mulligan, discuss why they'll be running the scene in the next couple years, and examine their new album to see how it compares to Pilot. Without further ado, I would like to formally introduce everyone to Hot Mulligan. Hot Mulligan formed circa 2014 when friends Chris Freeman and Nathan Tades Sandville began writing songs together. Like many young boys, their bond began after sharing a urinal. During their formative years, there would be additional members that would join the band only to come and go before landing on their current lineup, which has been rock steady since 2016. In addition to Chris and Tades, Ryan Melissi, Garrett Willig, and the one and only Brandon Blakely would join to play lead guitar, bass, and drums, respectively.
I want to play drums one day.
Hailing from Lansing, Michigan, Hot Mulligan plays a comfortable blend of pop punk and Midwest emo with a tiny splash of math rock. Based on the style of music they play, it's fortunate that they live in the area they do. Not only do they have easy access to the Midwest, which is widely known as the emo part of the United States, but they can also easily access the East Coast / New England area, which is teeming with great acts and passionate music scenes. Before Hot Mulligan would sign to their current label, they would put out a handful of EPs, a split, and go on a couple weird tours. During this time, they were signed to Save Your Generation Records, but everything was still pretty DIY for the most part.
Then, everything changed
when No Sleep Records followed them on Twitter. Their friend and producer Nick Diner, formerly of the Swellers, is very connected in the music world and believed in them and helped them get their name out there. They signed a deal with No Sleep Records in April of 2017 and haven't looked back since. Fast forward almost exactly 1 year later, in spring 2018, Hot Mulligan would drop their first album, Pilot. Due to the catchy, charismatic, carefree attitude that the album has, it attracted a lot of new eyes and grew their fan base substantially. What makes Hot Mulligan interesting is that on the surface, they package themselves and their art as kinda goofy, not that serious, and have these funny song titles. And your first thought might be, wow, these seem like some fun, lighthearted tracks. But a quick skim through any of their lyrical content will reveal the exact opposite. In a way, it feels like a depressed person trying to cover up their sense of hopelessness by making everything a joke and laughing at everything, even though they're in deep pain on the inside. Let's take a look at their song Feel Like Crab, the first single from You'll Be Fine. And what's funny is Feel Like Crab is actually one of their only song titles that pertains to what's being said in the track. Feel like crab, more like feel like crap. If you were to listen to Feel Like Crab passively, chances are you wouldn't pick up on the intense levels of self-deprecation and low sense of self-worth. I'm going to play you a short clip from the song and then we'll read what's actually being said. That wasn't too depressing. No, I'm just kidding, it is. I'm a dead friend, let me rot in my coffin now. The only difference, I'd probably prefer it. It's so honest and dark that you almost don't even know how to feel at first. But chances are you wouldn't notice that right away, which serves to give their music re-listenability. When I listen to a brand new Hot Mulligan track for the first time, I do so very passively. I just let it play in the background and enjoy all the sounds. But my second round of listening is when I really sit down and read through the lyrics as the songs play. I like to think of it like this. Listening to a Hot Mulligan song without reading along with the lyrics is like eating a cookie. It's good and you enjoy it. But when you read along with the lyrics, it's like eating that same cookie while reading what's inside of it. You can really appreciate the ingredient profile and the time it took to create the recipe. Now it's time for a short history lesson. As many of you know, the scene, for lack of a better word, is in a fairly strange place right now, which gives Hot Mulligan a distinct advantage when it comes to standing out and being noticed, and also affords them the opportunity to climb to the top of what I'm predicting will be the next wave or resurgence of pop punk, emo, alternative rock, and all that type of stuff. 2010 through 2011 kickstarted a pop punk / emo revival of sorts. My friend Finn McKenty refers to this period of time as sad boy pop punk, and it encompassed acts like The Story So Far, The Wonder Years, Modern Baseball Citizen, Neck Deep, to name a few of the bigger acts. On top of that, bands like American Football, Mineral, and The Promise Ring played reunion shows in the first half of the 2010s, with American Football sticking around to make another album and then one after that. But in 2016, during the latter half, things began to slow down. It felt like everything was sliding down the backside of the bell curve. Some of it had to do with waning popularity, of course, but it's also worth noting that most of the bands I mentioned that comprised the 2010s emo / pop punk scene began shifting or shying away from their roots, which made everything blurry, less defined, and began slowly wiping away the united feeling the scene once had. So now, in 2020, there aren't a ton of bands that Hot Mulligan has to compete with for the spotlight, as far as newer acts go. Some bands that come to mind would be Grayscale, Heart Attack Man, Movements, and Waster. But even out of those groups, Hot Mulligan stands out with their short yelps, occasional breakdowns, and undeniable enthusiasm and energy that bleeds its way into every song they make. It's refreshing that they're able to progress and develop their sound without having to go super pop or try to incorporate jazz and have it be really awkward. They know what they are and embrace it, but do so through the lens of always wanting to advance and improve their work, promoting originality and longevity. This will serve them well as the scene continues to wind back up, with labels like Pure Noise going absolutely bonkers, No Sleep seems to be at it again, and then the big dogs like Fearless, Hopeless, and even Epitaph are signing more and more new acts. Hot Mulligan will be at the front of the curve for all of this. They'll be established and have some skin in the game, with knowledge of how things were before and after the pop punk / emo revival, and insight on where things are most likely headed. They're able, knowledgeable, and talented. The perfect storm to take over. So at this point in time, You'll Be Fine has most likely been out for about a week. I've been listening to it for a little over a month, and I'm just gonna be straight up and not beat around the bush. This album smashes Pilot. You'll Be Fine feels like the album that Hot Mulligan has been trying to make since they've began. It feels like the culmination of all their hard work. As enjoyable of an album as Pilot is, it just doesn't compare to You'll Be Fine. It's best put like this: Pilot feels like a pop punk / emo album, and a good one at that. But You'll Be Fine feels like a Hot Mulligan album. There's an overwhelming sense of identity that's present on this album, and it just feels uniquely them. Their levels of self-awareness feel even more heightened, while unapologetically embracing who they are as musicians and as people.
I think the very first song I wrote was about getting caught smoking weed by my parents and being really mad about it. It's quite embarrassing. It was called Caught.
They make no compromises when it comes to artistic integrity and put little to no stock in what others think of them. You can really tell that these guys are doing it for them and only them, making their output authentic and relatable. They make no attempt to commercialize their sound, which is where many bands in their lane go wrong after they have a successful debut LP. One aspect of You'll Be Fine that really stands out is how heavy some of these songs are. The last minute of Dirty Office Bongos will melt your face off. In fact, there are a good amount of tracks on here that are much heavier than anything on Pilot. The production on You'll Be Fine is bright and polished, but is able to maintain that raw sound that Hot Mulligan fans know and love, while improving the overall quality of the recording. The melodies are crazy infectious, and you'll find that they'll be looping in your head after just a few listens. If you like the way Pilot sounded, then you're in for a treat. I also wanted to touch on the album art and how beautiful, inventive, and complementary it is to the music. It was shot by the very talented Caitlin Dargan. She's one of the best photographers right now, and you're sorely missing out if her work isn't on your social media feeds. Hot Mulligan is a band filled with down-to-earth guys with zero pretension and an evident drive to break new ground and have a positive impact on the music scene they cater to. They're kind, humble, and treat others right, and make sure their fans feel safe and taken care of at all all times. When I saw them for the first time at Chain Reaction, Chris actually approached me, introduced himself, and thanked me and said that he used to frequent Pop Punk Merch Wall when Hot Mulligan was just starting, and proceeded to give me a free shirt. If that's not hugely revealing of the band's character and motives, then I don't know what is. Stuff like that sticks with you for a lifetime, and I'll never forget his kindness and how quick he was to humble himself after just meeting each other. You'll Be Fine is out March 6th, which has already passed now, but all I ask is that you listen to it and send Hot Mulligan a little love. Thank you for watching.
Good morning, my children.
Good morning, Father.
I made coffee for you.
So scared!